I'm Martin Jarvis, and once again, I want to welcome you to another perspective. Today we're going to talk about marriage. Yeah, we've been on this kick for the past couple of months regarding science and quantum physics and correlating them to spirituality. So maybe in a sense we still are entanglement, It's sort of like a quantum science term, but as well it seems to be a description of marriage, and hopefully a good thing. So we're going to talk about marriage today because marriage seems to be a very important topic in our society. Folks who desire to get married, a lot of times people begin to recognize they may have made some mistakes and later in life determining they want marriage, and especially young people in their lives, because you feel like you have your whole life ahead of you, and some things you consider, some things you don't, and marriage sometimes falls on the back burner. But then it's like as you kind of put a couple of decades on that individual, then it becomes very, very important, and oftentimes it's fleeting. We live in a society where the amount of the divorce rate is greater than the rate of marriage slightly. And then you have to ask yourself, well, of those half of the people who were married that did not get divorced, how many are staying together because of financial reasons or because of religious reasons or just insecurity, other reasons other than simply wanting to be with that individual? That percentage might be very small. So we want to look at this whole thing, this whole picture, because all of us, fall somewhere on the spectrum, and we have our feelings and our ideas. And it's from me, from my previous programs, whether it's on spirituality, whether it's from education or health, my position is that everything and anything is accomplishable, okay? I mean, within reason and all. And so I don't take defeat easily. The thing is, we have to be critical, critically examine the situation, critically examine ourselves, because we may simply be getting negative results because of the way we're looking at a thing, believing that the way we're seeing it is the only way, and we might be wrong. I've seen that in religion so often. We see it in politics all the time. We see it in relationships. That if the individual is involved, everyone always believes they're right. And the reality is everyone cannot be right. And so we're going to discuss a lot of these things. So marriage, in search of marriage. I look at folks, men and women both, as they're getting up in age, maybe in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and single or divorced, and realizing that they're going to be alone when they get old, and worrying about that, not wanting to grow old alone. And rightfully so, because it could be a little thing. Now, me personally, I've been married for like almost 28 years now, and I'll be I just turned 67 this year, 2025. My wife is about 9 years younger than me. She's a business owner. I'm a federal worker. I've been a federal employee for like the past 32 years and all. I have an MBA. She has a bachelor's degree, working on her MBA right now, as a matter of fact. And we have a daughter, a 20-year-old daughter in college, getting ready to become a senior, on her way to law school after that. And so I have to admit, I was married once before, and that marriage was dismal. It was a mistake. And in retrospect, like we all do, as older people, we can look back at our younger lives and recognize where we messed up, And so then I'm sitting in a place then of experience, of recognizing the things that you do wrong and recognizing how you do right, okay? And so then my message then, I guess, initially is to young people. I'm really a proponent of education, and getting an education, and a wise education. Now with AI at our fingertips, there's no reason in the world for us to be going to college taking courses that are not going to benefit us in life. Like sociology courses or sociology majors or psychology majors and things of that nature. You just go to AI and ask AI, what are the jobs in the future, in the near future, in the far future that are going to be very beneficial to me, and AI will just spell them out and take your pick, and then follow that course of education at the university. Okay, so this should be a given. This is what all young people should be doing. Okay. All young people should be trying to do their best in high school, so that once they leave high school, they can go on to the university in a very pertinent field, pertinent to our future, and do well. And in that, so what we have then are young people that are growing up educated, on good financial paths in life, increasing their worldview because of their education. And then meeting folks, meeting people, and dating, and getting married, and not immediately. Now, I'm a believer that an individual should try to establish themselves. That is, to have a good job, have a stable job, and get an education, before stepping into the marriage pit, They call it a pit, but before stepping into marriage, have yourself, grounded and secure. Now, I don't mean to have, mounted up riches, and a big nest egg, because that's pretty much impossible early on in an individual's life, but at least be on a positive direction to show that you have a good head on your shoulders. You do have processing skills, and you're making good, sound decisions in life, going the right direction. Every journey begins with that single step, so it's not expected to have surmounted tons of finance, but at least to have the right head, have a plan, have a direction that you're walking. Okay, and this, what I'm suggesting is when you meet people, because young people, you'll meet people in college, you'll meet people after college, go on to graduate studies or wherever you're going off in life, but it's important that you vet individuals before you give your heart to an individual. Okay. And this is what folks very rarely do. And then they find out later in life, after commitments have been made, or babies have been made, even worse, that they're stuck. And so what I'm suggesting is we need to take precautions, to be wise, and to not jump the gun on any particular aspect of life when it's not time. Babies come after marriage, okay? So maintain that in your mind. And if babies come after marriage and you're having sex, you have to have protected sex. It's amazing to me, folks that have babies, unintended babies. I mean, it's like I guess it's where the education comes in. There must have been a biology class missing. Don't do that, because what I'm saying, and I have an MBA. But this, what I'm sharing with you, is not really MBA necessary sense. It's just, to me, common sense. It's just to recognize that in this day and age, this affordability word has been tossed around and is a very pertinent word to our times, because things are expensive. I was thinking the other day, how when I was a young person and I was living on my own in an apartment, I was paying $400 a month. My son, who is 36 now, he tells me he's paying $1,600 a month, and he just moved from an apartment where he was paying $2,000 a month. I can't even fathom that. But so in this day and age, with the prices the way they are, and even the volatile job market, it's very important, first of all, to respect finances. And to realize that the situation is not like it was back when I was young, okay? And so considerations have to be made. And so this idea of marriage wasn't really prevalent on my mind when I was coming up. But what I'm suggesting is it is the natural course of action for a human being, especially when we're having sex, okay? And we're liking people, but we're moving around. We're not really recognizing the seriousness of relationships. And what I want to suggest is that it's, and we do when we get older. You see a lot of older people, older women, older men on Facebook, wanting a husband, wanting a wife and all that. They simply wised up in their old age, but this is a time where young people need to hit the ground running. Recognize the situation of the future right now while you're young, which is something most of us didn't do, those of us who are older today. But I'm suggesting that you don't have time to wait. You have to begin to prepare for your future now, or you're not going to have a future. The money situation is number one. You're going to be out having relationships, doing all that. But what is the point of the relationship? Where is it going on to? Okay? Now, when I was younger, I was out and about, butterflying here and there, and just thinking that this is where everyone's head was at. This is what everyone was doing. Okay? But we are wasting our youth. Now this might sound kind of shallow, but why do you think young people are so cute? Whether it's the males or the females, why do you think in our youth we do look the best, okay? Because that's the time in our lives we're supposed to be attracting someone, because nobody maintains that look, nobody maintains the youth, nobody maintains the cuteness, nobody maintains that look as they grow older. So at that young time, what we're finding is we're in a lot of young people's lives, we're in that party scene, clubbing, doing all that stuff, and we're not utilizing the youth as it was intended to attract, okay? And what we are attracting oftentimes is those people who are not conducive to our future, people who are just living for the moment, people like I used to be when I was a younger person. But you don't have that luxury today. Realize that when you're dating someone that has issues, they should simply be eliminated from your life, okay? Now I don't mean being too picky and all, but because people have issues. We all have issues. But I'm speaking of basic character traits, okay? Are they selfish? Are they mean? Are they childish? How do they act when they don't get their way? And, how are they to other people? Are they moral? Are they generous? Are they mean? These are the type things that aren't probably going to change, okay? Now, if somebody doesn't know how to dress right or wear the right kind of clothes or get the right kind of haircut, that's something altogether different. But particular character traits are probably not going to change, okay? So I would suggest then, this is in search of the introduction topic, is to not waste your time with people who are not marriage material, okay? And it's simply that. But this is what we do. And you can go all throughout all these dating apps and find all these old people, or find some of the older people on social media just complaining about not being able to find someone. Well, for many of them, it is too late. You waited too long. It's like the expiration date on a carton of milk or something. It's over. But it's not over for the young people, okay? Marriage is necessary, as we discussed, for the finances, because the future is going to be very dismal on one income. See, right now on one income, even a professional on one income today, with today's, come on, paying $2,000 for rent, and some more, finance, it's going to be very difficult. It's very difficult to try to scrape together and try to do the right thing and build a future on one income, okay? Now you meet somebody and they have an income and you come together with two incomes, really, you're still, in a sense, still paying for the bills of one person, just one bigger person, right? But the money doubles immediately. So imagine whatever you're getting paid, and it just doubles. Okay, that's how it is when you finally marry someone who's on the same page as you are, the same trajectory as you are, the same mindset, the same income level, or more, or a little less, but increasing with goals and visions of a future. Your income increases, it feels exponentially. Your life changes overnight. That's a reason, okay? But the caveat is, don't marry the wrong person. Don't marry for the wrong reasons. Don't marry for that reason, but use that reason as the catalyst to recognize you need to be married. As well, it is the natural thing. It is the thing we're supposed to be doing. And I have to admit, my generations and a few generations prior, coming up in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and all, we're the ones who broke the mold. And the mold wasn't a bad mold. Marriage is a good thing. Companionship is a good thing. Having children, into a marriage situation is very positive. It's positive for the marriage, and it's positive for the child as well. They grow up better that way, with a balanced mindset on what it is to be a man and what it is to be a woman, what it is to function, even as a husband, even as a wife. Growing up in a healthy family with two parents who are married very much aids in that, okay? So the finances is a very important aspect of survival, because nobody wants to be that old person having to work at Myers, when they're 80 years old, simply because their money never did come together and they can't afford not to work. Come on now. So that's a reason. Another reason is companionship. Companionship when you get older. It's better to grow older with someone than to be without someone. And so companionship is very important, and it's not really cognizant in the minds of individuals who are young, just living that life, moving around and doing their thing. But in the later years, you begin to realize that it's good to have companionship. It's not good to be alone. And I believe the statistics show that men do live longer who are married. I don't know about the women, but I think women just live longer anyway. but that's what they say. And take it from a person who's older now, is that age creeps up on you, but it does not slow down. And so eventually you will be older. And trying to put something together when you're older is a lot more difficult, a lot more problematic than if you had been building upon it on relationships when you were younger and meeting someone and working together. Now, don't get me wrong. One of the problems is that there are going to be issues. Okay, you're two different individuals, and you're going to have different ideas, different mindsets. So there's going to be some arguing. There's going to be some disagreement. Okay, that's just the reality of it. We have to stop putting, our emotions into it where I have to have things my way or it's not going to work. See, that's not really companionship. That's master-slave relationship. I was telling an individual recently, and I was speaking to an older woman. She was about 60 years old, and she was lamenting that she had never been married. This is a professional, making good money, never been married, and now regretting the decisions and choices that were made, the possibilities of people that were in her life that she chose not to entertain, okay, because they weren't perfect. And so what I'm suggesting is we have to come to the point to realize that nobody is perfect. You cannot use this measurement of perfection to determine whether or not someone is going to be a viable candidate, for your companion for the rest of your life, because you're not perfect. So I speak to this one young person, and they were talking about how they didn't want to settle for anything, less than what their personality desired. And I'm suggesting to that individual, well, you expect someone to settle for you? So just recognize that nobody is perfect. Now again, character issues, that's a totally different story. Negative character issues aren't going to change, and you're not going to change anyone. You can change someone's hairstyle, you can change someone's clothes, but you're not going to be able to change their character, okay? So that's not what I'm talking about. But don't be picky about little things because you don't measure up. Nobody measures up to that perfect individual, because there is no perfect individual. There are always going to be quirks, and so the caveat to those seeking companionship, and companionship is a good thing, is to recognize everything isn't always going to go your way. It's the art of compromise. That's what marriage is about. It's about compromise. Same with nations, on the planet. How do we don't agree on everything. We have differences of opinion, but you have to compromise. You have to be willing to compromise. That not compromising your integrity, but compromising, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, and nobody's going to give in. In this marriage, that I've been married almost 28 years now, my philosophy has always been, whatever you want to do is fine. My only line in the sand was, if it jeopardizes the well-being of the family, then I have to speak up, okay? And then we'll have to deal with that. But as far as where you want to go on vacation, what kind of house you want, what kind of car you want, where do you want our child to go to school, I agree with you. Whatever you want is fine with me, as long as it isn't, challenging the well-being of the family unit. And that, to me, is compromise, okay? And so get ready for that. But it's better compromise. Man, when you look at people that are old and they've been married a long time, my daughter, whenever I say that, she looks at me and she says, "Dad, you're old." I mean, but people that are really old, been married like 40 years or 50 years, and they're like really old. I mean, you go to the restaurant sometime, and sitting there, or like a Panera Bread or something in the morning or the afternoon or whatever, and they're just sitting there. She might be doing a crossword puzzle. He might be reading. They're not even speaking to each other. Some people look at him like, "Man, that is sad. I don't want to be like that when I get old." No, they have companions. They're content. They've learned the art of compromise, even to the point where it's okay to do what you choose to do, and you do what you choose to do, because we're two different people. That's the art of compromise. And that's one of the reasons why so many marriages do end up in divorces, because both parties believe that what they want to do is the thing they both need to do. No, it's not that. And my wife and I, we have a situation where I don't like to go shopping, okay? But I love to go grocery shopping. Now, she hates to go grocery shopping, but she loves to shop. That's cool, That's a satisfied situation. That's a compromise. And so when you recognize that you can do what you desire to do, and the other can do what they desire to do, and you still have companionship, you're still loyal, you're good. Check yourself constantly. Be more critical on yourself than you are on the individual that you are married to. Again, don't put up with immoral things. Don't put up with negative character traits, okay? But I'm simply talking about surviving. The things I like to do, the things you like to do, the things I like to watch, the things you like to watch, the places you like to go, the places I like to go. No, man, check yourself. See, I think the problem we have is that when we walk into relationships, even when we're desiring a relationship and being in a relationship, our focus is primarily like the individual who doesn't want to grow old alone, okay? To be honest, that's kind of selfish. How about I want to place myself in an individual's life so they don't have to be alone, okay? The point I'm making is we have to stop seeing relationships as simply what I'm going to get out of the relationship, what I need out of the relationships, getting my needs met and all that stuff. Well, what kind of needs am I meeting for the other individual? Whether it's the man for the woman or the woman for the husband. It's like, well, this is not about you. It's never about you. And if both people could walk into a relationship recognizing this isn't about me, both of their needs will be totally met. But most of the time, people walk into relationships needing their own needs met, needing to find their own fulfillment, their own happiness through this relationship. And the reality is that's not going to happen. Because if you're not happy, if you're not fulfilled in and of yourself, there's nothing anybody can do that's going to satisfy you, and that's not going to be trying on them, okay? We have to really be able to critically examine ourselves and recognize what's wrong with me. And I want to fix me. I want to fix me so I can be better for you. And if both folks have that in mind, if both folks are critically examining themselves to fix themselves so they can be the best for both others are going to be totally satisfied. But it's very difficult. It's a very difficult task because we want to be happy. Happiness emanates from within, not from without. Okay? So that's, I think, one of the most important aspects I think most people are missing is everyone it seems, is more prone to or more desirous to feel fulfilled themselves, ourselves. But how do we get there when it comes time to link with another person? It's easy when you're by yourself. I just want some ice cream. I just want a hamburger. Or I just want to work out. I just want to exercise. Whatever it is, we know how to make ourselves feel good. But when you decide to be union with someone else, that someone else is part of you. So as you know how to make yourself feel good, now that you are one with another individual, you have to figure out how to make them well. And that is very difficult, because people often feel like their needs are not being met. Don't worry about your needs. Worry about their needs. And if they would worry about your needs. And see, this is a very difficult concept to grasp, because they're like, you'll hear me and you'll say, okay, I'm going to try that. But then if your significant other isn't functioning in the same way, you're going to lose your drive, you're going to lose your desire, you're going to lose your energy. It has to be both, or it's just not going to work. Now, the marriage might work, but one person is going to be miserable because they're simply meeting the needs of the other. Now, it has to be mutual. Okay. Very important, what you should do before even considering becoming serious about an individual is look at their family. Look at the relationship between their mother and their father. Because chances are that is exactly how they're going to be. Look at the father. If you're a female, the father of this young man that you're thinking about dating, that's how he's going to be. More often than not. And if you're a guy and you're thinking about dating this girl, look at her mother. That's what you're going to be. It's simply that simple. I don't care if the individual leaves home saying, I'm going to be nothing like my dad, or the girl leaves home saying, I'm going to be nothing like my woman. Chances are they're going to be like my mother. Chances are they're going to be just like their dad. Chances are they're going to be just like their mother, because that's what they've learned. Children idolize their parents, even if their parents are rotten. And I don't mean consciously idolize their parents. I mean subconsciously. They're looking at them. This is the example in their eyes all of their life, and this is how they become. And so, like my family. My father was a military man. Now he was off on what they call TDY. He was at different places, maybe Vietnam for a year, here and there and all that. But he was always home, okay? So even when he was functioning in his job in the military, even though he was in Pakistan, Turkey, wherever he was always still home. And when he got back, he was always home. And we never had to worry about, where's Dad? We knew. Dad was home. He might be at the club, NCO club or something, but he was a present father. You wake up on Saturday morning, Dad is there. You go into the credit union, go into the bank. That was a thrill of my life as a kid, standing in line at the credit union with my dad, weird as that was. But that was my dad. My dad was full of love for his children. Some of the best feelings I had was him hugging me and putting his beard, on a Saturday on my face, scratching my face, But that was my dad, always there, always full of love, and always fun. And so that's who I am, always fun. I'm always home. My children, my wife, they know. I'm very comfortable being home. I'm like my dad, okay? Now my wife, her mother, she was a single mother. Did an excellent job, had 3 kids, had 2 of her girls graduate from college, one from Miami University, one Ohio University, and her son with a trade that he ended up retiring with. The mother did that on her own. And so my wife is really into our daughter, everything for her, take whatever she is, different level, because we're a unit. But my daughter's off in college, in a sorority, has all the accoutrement, My wife just makes sure she has everything that she needs, because she is like her mother, in a better position to really help, our daughter. But so I am like my father, always at home. My wife is like her mother, always present, always making sure everything is all right. Because we become just like our parents. And so what I'm suggesting is there are men that are mean to their wives. Men whose wives are like subservient to them, always waiting on them, making their plate. You know? My daughter didn't come up like that. So I'm just saying that unless that's the life that you want to live with a husband, just look at the wife that's married to his dad, and that's the life you're looking at. That's the struggle you'll have. And guys, the same thing, you know, if you're getting ready to get married, look at the mother of your potential, you know, date or your potential wife. What kind of person is she? Is she nagging? Is she ragging on the husband? Is she, whatever she's doing, is she spending all the money and no money left and struggling to pay bills because everything, you know, that's what you're going to, that's what you're marrying. So it's very important to check out the family of your potential date before you give your heart. Because that's what you're in for. If you have a here we go. I might take some flack, but you might have a potential boyfriend that comes from a family of criminals. That's what you got. He might be good at the moment, but at the drop of a hat, you know, this is what you got. Don't more often than not. Or the female's the same. Criminal, you know, scam artist, you know, playing, you know, around, cheating on the husband or whatever. That's what you got. Because that was the model for your daughter growing up. And even if it's not a conscious model in her mind, it's the subconscious reality of what she has embraced as this is what a mom is. This is what a woman is. So it's awful hard sometimes when you're in college, say, or you're on the job, you're in a similar situation, all you see is that individual there that's just like you because you're functioning in the same environment. But you need to go home and check out their family, because that's what you're in for. Okay? Try to find a good, healthy family, or try to find the Huxtables. I don't know. But just make sure, because that's what you're looking at. As well, let me tie this into that kind of, is look at the personality trait or the character trait of the individual and how they respond when things don't go right. Well, if they have to have like now this is really for the girl usually, but it's the guy too. If this person, you know, gets mad when they don't get their way or pouts when they don't get their way, always needs to have things their way. See, early on in a relationship, you might not mind. Oh, that's okay. We'll do it your way then. Okay, but in time, it's not going to get better. And so this is, see, when I say that I determine that whatever it is that my wife wants, she can have, or what she wants to do, she can do, as long as it doesn't challenge the well-being of the family unit. Yeah, that's fine. But what I'm going to suggest is that she's not insisting upon that. As a matter of fact, sometimes she wants me to be more involved. Okay, so when somebody insists on having their own way only, that might be a little cute when you're first dating, but it's going to get a whole lot worse and it's going to become unbearable. Run away from that, okay? And as well, do they get angry when something doesn't go their way? You might think it's cute now. It's not going to be cute because it's going to get worse. It can even become criminal eventually. As well, an individual that always wants to know where you are. Where are you? Texting you, calling you. It might seem cute at first, but that right there is a stalker. That's going to be a miserable life, and it's not going to get better. So you might think it's cute now, them checking up on you, showing up where you are when you're with your girlfriends or doing whatever you're doing, just popping up, always eating. That's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for misery. And it also has potential criminal implications later on in life. Run from that. Don't think that's cute when they always need to know where you are or they're popping up where you and your friends are. That's not cute. It's going to get worse and it's going to be terrible. Run from that. Kids. Wait for kids. As we've recognized in our society, the economic situation is not conducive to survival nowadays for most of the population. In my day, it was easy. Man, $400 a month for rent. You leave a job, day or two later you'll have another job, making good money. The situation was different when I came up in the 80s and the 90s, you know. But it's not the same anymore. financially very difficult. And as I shared, when you get married, and you have someone like-minded making similar money or even a little more, but however you're working together, your life changes like overnight, because the bills that you're paying, it really doesn't equate to two more people if there's just you and an individual. The bills still pretty much look like what you've been paying for one person. But now you've doubled your income, your life changes drastically, immediately, overnight. Okay? But what about when you interject kids into it? Immediately, it goes exponentially the other way. Kids are expensive. The baby formula, the food, the diapers, the everything that you have to get, it never changes, and it just gets more and more as they grow older. It's over financially for you when you have a kid. Now I love kids because they're a blessing, and I really do I love little babies. I love them all throughout all the stages of their lives. But at the right time. My wife and I, we waited 7 years to have a baby, until we waited till everything was in place, and then we said, okay, now we're going to have a baby. That's what we did. They have to be planned. Man, people that get married because they have a baby, they're probably never going to survive. Not well, okay? Don't do that. Don't have that baby early. And if you're not married, don't be having unprotected sex, man. Your body is more, as a young person, more prone to get pregnant than an older person is. Okay? Because your body is new, it's fresh, everything is working. It's like getting a new car, getting a new whatever, you know, all the parts are working perfectly like they're supposed to. You're prone to get pregnant quicker than you would if you were in your 20s or 30s or 40s, okay? So don't do that. A baby will mess up your life. A baby at the wrong time will mess up your life. Wait on your kids. Get yourself together. Again, we're talking about having an individual, a potential mate, then the spouse that's like-minded, working together, sharing the bills and the finances, and having a plan for the future. And in that future, at a certain point, decide this is where the baby comes. Don't let it happen before. It is absolutely ridiculous to have a baby that isn't planned for financially. Okay? I'm just telling you that, unless you just want to be poor for the rest of your life. They just want, and I'm telling you this, is finances is one of the biggest issues that relationships, that marriages have that break up, is finances. And what's causing that? The babies, the kids. And then what happens? And then you end up getting divorced, and this is to the men. More often than not, you're the one that's going to have to be paying child support for the rest of your life, and you've just taken half of the money that you've made. Now, before you were married, you were struggling to try to get your finances together before. Now, imagine half of the money you had then and trying to make it. It's not going to make it. You're not finding a roommate or living in a real cheap place and working 2 or 3 jobs. And this is for like the next 20 years. Don't have babies unless they're planned, and that plan has to be an economic plan. Otherwise, they'll ruin your lives, okay? This isn't your mama and your daddy and your grandparents' economy. Things are a lot different now. Okay, drugs and alcohol? Quit. I'm just saying, alcohol and drugs are simply bad for your body anyway, okay? But alcohol, as we know, now I'm putting drugs aside. When I say drugs, I know people are really fond of doing gummies. You know, I've never tried a gummy before, so I really can't speak on that. But alcohol really enhances your emotions. And so situations, in a relationship that you might put up with under normal sober situations, you might be losing your mind once you get some of that alcohol in you. As well, the alcohol is a catalyst for straying, is a catalyst for adultery, is a catalyst for going out and doing things that you really shouldn't be doing. Don't do that. And then drinking and driving, you get jammed up by the police, finances, everything is finance. So many things are finance, okay? And that are marriage related. Just don't do things that are going to challenge your family unit. Alcohol is one of those things. And now I'm going to add a little, your friends. Your friends, as you're a married person, your friends need to be getting minimalized, okay? You don't need all the friends. You really didn't need them when you were single, but you certainly don't need them when you're married. And then when you couple alcohol and friends into the mix, and having situations and soirees, and festivities together, you open the door for temptation. But many loyalties and friendships and marriages have been challenged, have been betrayed because of alcohol and connections. Okay, so I think my mother had this saying. She used to always, as she got older, she would say, she said, temptation never takes a vacation. So your marriage and friends in the mix with alcohol is a recipe for a temptation that should be avoided totally. Okay. So you really shouldn't be drinking alcohol anyway, because your kids, again, are modeling themselves after you. They're watching you, and alcohol is not a good thing. There's so many alcoholic issues in this nation that's why would you tempt that into your child's life and even into your own life with all the other real things that we have to face that cannot be avoided? Get rid of the alcohol, and I would say get rid of the drugs. Just be sober. Find your fun in other ways, with each other. Man, it speaks to an illness, I believe, that we have in this nation, that we think we need the buzz to be happy. Okay? All that really means is we're not really happy, so we got this pseudo-happiness that we're ingesting so that we can feel good when we're not really good. So then when that buzz wears off, we're back to our normal negative selves, so we can't wait to the next buzz. And I know, man, I was an expert at that back in the day. So I'm just suggesting this, that if you need a buzz to be happy, whether it's drugs or alcohol, if you need a buzz to have fun, then what's wrong with you? And instead, deal with that. Remember we're talking about critically challenging ourselves? Critically check yourself. If you feel like you can't be happy without that alcohol, if you feel that's the way you deal with situations in your life, that's a real issue. And that also is a recipe for disaster in marriage. Look at the numbers, the marriages that are broken up that are alcohol and or drug related. It's right up there next to lack of money. Okay? So drop that. Drop the alcohol. And besides that, even alcohol or no alcohol, as your marriage is strengthening, your friendships should be fanning out just a little bit, should be thinning out just a little bit. You don't need all those friends. You've got your friends. You've got your helpmeet. You've got work to do. You've got projects together, which are your finances, your life, things that you are building and working for. What do you need these distractions for, all these friends for? Not necessary, okay? And especially single friends, because that's problematic in and of yourself. You should never, now here we go. As a married person, now I've been married 28 years now, I'm saying that you shouldn't be drinking at all. But I know that's unreasonable for many people. So as far as going out to clubs, that's where people drink. If you're married, don't go to clubs and drink. Don't go to clubs where people are drinking. Why would you go to a place where the goal of people there who are drinking is to attract a member of the opposite sex? Why would you go there? You're just asking for trouble. Don't do that. Don't go out with your single friends to clubs. Don't even go out with your married friends to clubs. What's the point of that? The point of clubs is for men to try to attract women and women to try to attract men. Why are married folks going to clubs without their spouse? Don't do that. It's a recipe for disaster. And to piggyback on that, going to the gym. You should go to the gym. You should work out. Now, I work out at home. But go to the gym. I know my son goes to the gym. My daughter goes to the gym. Go to the gym. But go with your spouse. You don't have to be working on the same equipment. You don't have to be doing this. My wife and I don't do the same exercises. But don't go to the gym by yourself. Because temptation never takes a vacation. So you go to the gym. Yeah, maybe it's because I'm a Scorpio. I don't know. You go to a gym now, and you got people working out. They're wearing skimpy outfits, tight outfits, revealing outfits, sweating, getting their endorphins all riled up and everything. There's temptation there. And it may not be the first time. It may not be the second time. It might be a glance. It might be a talk. It might be an innocent conversation. But those things grow. Don't do that. Don't set yourself up for situations that could have a negative impact on your relationship. I'm just giving you some information. These are the things that, I'm telling you, these are the things that destroy relationships. Are the alcohol, the going out like you're single when you're not single, the places. And I'm telling you this, and this is all experience, okay? Because I've been that single man, and I am that married man. And something about being a married person makes an individual more attractive to the single people. I think what it is oftentimes everybody, most people are walking around with a certain aspects of low self-esteem. And so when you see somebody that you might feel that you're going to get positive attention from, that person is more desirable to you. Okay, so you're approaching someone who is not available. So to you, that in itself is somewhat attractive because it's the thing you're not supposed to be doing. But as well, it gives you more of a confidence because you have the upper hand in that you are the single person, you are the free person, and it makes that interaction easier for you. Okay? So I'm just saying then that's the person who's single. So you need to recognize then as a married person, that is not an environment you want to be in. Okay? And we'll go even further as far as the Law and Order part, because, I listen to 48 Hours and those kind of shows all the time, where you have spouses, that are killing their spouses, and say, calling the police saying they shot themselves, and it's really them all along. Everybody knows that's pretty much what it is. It's that you do stuff, especially under the influence of alcohol, or just under the influences of a situation where the temptation simply won out. And then after that, your spouse is leaving, and now you don't know what you're going to do without them because you really did appreciate their company, and you end up killing them or killing yourself or both or whatever. No, don't set yourself up for those positions. Don't cheat. Don't set yourself up in situations that are going to tempt you to cheat. Always, always protect yourself from situations like that. Don't put yourself in situations like that. Harmless flirtation is not harmless. And maybe use this as a rule of thumb. Don't do anything when you're with someone of the opposite sex, when you're not with your spouse, that you wouldn't mind doing in front of them. That right there. Okay. Now, I've given enough warnings about people that have undesirable character traits, okay? But on the other side, we need to recognize that we cannot be too picky, because you're not going to find anyone on this planet who's going to be like your fingerprint. And we're like fingerprints. There's nobody going to be exactly like us. Okay? So what is it that we find not desirable about this individual? Okay? I know my wife and I, we are Christians, but she is like a real traditional Christian, and I'm sort of a progressive liberal. So we don't believe in the same stuff. My wife is like totally traditional, kind of like my mother was. Just black and white. That's just the way that it is, But see, we come to realize within ourselves that we've still been married 28 years. And I remember we met in church. And I was like over the outreach ministries, and she was over the young people, like 20 to 30-year-olds. And there were times we would bump into each other, like in the copy room in the church, and we'd start a conversation, and we'd always be arguing because she was a traditionalist and I wasn't. And they weren't harsh arguments, but they were disagreements. She always says, now I should have known then, But the reality is that we have to be wise enough and reasonable enough to recognize that from a religious perspective, whatever it is we believe, we've simply chosen to believe, usually based on the families we came up in or the church that we're at or whatever. But even if you go to any church, like my wife and I were attending this church, and we were leaders in the church, but we thought differently. You're not going to find too many people, even in one institution, one church, that's going to believe 100% everything that everybody else does. It just doesn't work that way. Because we are also, we are also influenced by our worldview, a situation and environments that we came up in, all things that we've been exposed to, plus this religion we happen to be a part of. So recognize then, it's easier to accept an individual in your life that doesn't see the religion or spirituality exactly the way you do when you honestly recognize that there is no other reason that you believe what you believe other than it's just what you chose to believe. There is no validity toward it that expresses, no, the way you believe is correct. No, we just have chosen. We can even read the same holy book and come up with different, that's why we have Methodists and Baptists and Pentecostals and all this stuff using the same book. Because so don't judge a potential mate or potential spouse based on their religious belief, unless you're talking about making human sacrifices. Something immoral there. We'll go back to the immorality and the character again. So then it's not really the particular religious belief. It's that morality and character. Now, if their religion is a controlling religion, that, okay, this man is telling the woman she has to do this and be this and wear this and act like this, and he's the man that, if you want to live like that or if you were raised like that, that's fine. But if you weren't, make that decision right away. Maybe you should. I said go visit their family. Maybe you should visit their church too. See what's being preached in there. That women remain silent. That might be problematic for my daughter, that's for sure. So be a little bit ease up on that. Recognize you cannot impose your beliefs. That's why on other folks. Now you can insist to someone that 2 + 2 is 4 because that's been proven. But as far as the things that you have chosen to believe, just embrace your own belief. Everybody needs to work. Everybody needs to produce. Man, I was watching this thing on TikTok where this woman was working 3 jobs and her husband was working no jobs, and her brothers found out. They came to the house, took her out that house, and threatened that husband. Yeah. Don't be in a situation where you're not where your other individual isn't generating revenue. Now, if you're in a situation where you're just so well off that it's not necessary, that's a different situation. But don't be carrying all the weight and it be taking away from you. I mean your being, okay? Now if one of you is just making a whole lot of money and it's all y'all's money, but I'm just saying not either individual just be working their tails off and another individual is doing nothing. So in other words, it's not about the amount of money that's being made, it's the amount of effort that's being put forth. Okay? Don't be working while somebody else isn't working if money is a necessity. Okay? Now if you're somebody like I just heard Michael Jordan just won like $1 billion lawsuit off of NASCAR. I don't know if that's AI or if it's true. But see, Michael Jordan money, I wouldn't expect his wife to be working. He's got it covered, you see? But I'm saying is if there's a need for finances, both need to be contributing. Okay? Very important. And so, I mean, a lot of times, and see, this is where we look at the situation our husbands and wives, our parents came out of, okay? I know my first marriage, when I got married, she was working for the VA for like 6 years. And I was working for NCR Corporation. And we got married, and about a month later, she quits her job. What? I wasn't making that much money, but the family she came up in, her mother never worked. Okay? And her daddy always worked. And so in her mind, as illogical as it was for our situation at the time, that's all she knew to do, and that's what she did. Okay? And then to be honest with you, my mother didn't work either. But I wasn't modeling myself after my mother. I was modeling myself after my father, who always worked. And guess what? My father always worked. Always. He was in the military for like a bunch of years. Then he got out of the military, retired, and went back in as a civil service. Same job, same military. He did like 40 years for the U.S. government. He was a worker. And he finally died. I've been a worker, man. I started working when I was 17 years old when I joined the military. And I think I've been, and I just turned 67 about a month ago in 2025. So I've been working for 50 years. I've been unemployed probably 6 months total in all that time. Why? Because my dad worked all of his life. And so do I. That's the way it works. So I'm going to come back and we'll probably do a series on marriage, maybe a 20-part series on marriage, and cover topics individually, the topics that I brushed upon today. And we'll see where this goes, because this is a very important time. I think people do recognize as they're getting older the need, but they just didn't see the need when they were younger. But as they've gotten older, their marketability has decreased significantly. And now they're out here just sad. We don't want that. So I do want to thank you for joining me once again for another perspective. And I want to invite you to join me again. You take care. Bye.